Good day, students. I believe you are all fine. We thank God for His grace, His mercies, and His love upon our life. Good. Today, I have a subject for you, and that is Information and Communication Technology, ICT. The topic for today is Introduction to the Computer Desktop. I am in a person of Ochukmi Michael, and I am your facilitator for today's lesson. What I want you to do is to make sure you take your book, your pen, as we go through this wonderful lesson. Good. Wow. Now, I know you are still asking yourself a question, because I just introduced a topic to you and later all that you see is a bicycle being displayed on the screen. What does this bicycle tells you? It tells us something. All that I want to say is that our life is just like a bicycle. In order to make a balance, you have to keep on moving. You have to move the bicycle from where it is to a different location. You have to keep on moving. The frustrations will come. The challenges will come. The difficulties will come. The relaxation will come. If you don't move from where you are, you can never get to the top. If you sit at one place, you can never achieve success in education. Gather yourself with a lot of materials. Read more books. Do your calculations, your assignments. You don't need to quit the race when it is not over. Good. That is our life being made of. This bicycle, as you see it over there, if you don't apply the needed force, it will just be there. It can't move. No one can push you unless you push yourself. Good. Now let's move on to the next slide and see what we have over there. Wow, learning objectives. Learning objectives. By the end of the lesson, the student should be able to 1. Define user interface. Define user interface. 2. State the features of the computer desktop. 3. State the types of user interface. This becomes our learning objectives. Kindly take your book and your pen as I take you through these slides. Good. So we have definition of user interface. In computer science and human computer interaction, the user interface refers to the graphical, textual, and auditory information the program presents to the user. I take it again. In computer science and human computer interaction, the user interface refers to the graphical, textual, and auditory information the program presents to the user. It is also the means by which the user and a computer system interact. Okay, in particular the use of input devices and software. So what you are trying to say is that after the operating system has been installed on the machine, there is going to be an interface where the user will be able to use those input devices to manipulate the icons that will be displayed on the screen. On this interface, we can also install application software. We can also install application software. You know, whenever you install this kind of software, it becomes an icon on the screen. So it will enable the user to know which icon to use, as in which program to use in order to be able to perform other activities. Good. Now, user interface is also known as UI or an interface. It is an interface by which a person controls a software application or hardware device. An interface in which a person controls a software application or hardware device. That tells you something about the user interface. It provides a platform where we can run other programs. That tells you that we need to install an operating system so that we can get an interface to be able to install this application software and also try to use our hardware devices like the mouse, the keyboard to perform their function properly. Good. A good user interface provides a user-friendly experience, allowing the user to interact with the software or a hardware. That tells you something about a good user interface. That means that a good user interface should be able to have features like images, pictures, sounds, icons, program icons, so that communication between the user and then the machine will be very easier. That becomes a good user interface. An interface where the user will be able to read from. An interface where the user will be able to perform several activities. Good. Good. Now, what you see on the screen becomes a user interface design. Okay, now the first one is made up of a woman, and then the second one is made up of a man. So with this, there is going to be an interaction between that application software on the machine, okay, between the user and then the system. So the software will be displayed for the user to be able to access the various features that will be made available. As you can see it on the screen, we have command as in sign in. Okay, the sign in command tells you something over there. Then we have text boxes. Then we have search boxes. So all these commands gives instructions. Okay, it directs the software what to do. So at the click event of any of these commands, that means that we will be able to get to the location that we want to get to. That becomes an interface, okay, or a user interface. This interface becomes a good user interface, okay. It's user friendly because all the features that the user will need is being made available as you can see it on the display screen. Alright, now we have types of user interface. Types of user interface. So we have several types of user interface. Several types of user interface. But we are going to talk about only two of them. Okay, we are going to talk about only two of them. Good. Now we have the command line interface and the graphical user interface. I repeat, we have the command line interface and the graphical user interface. Now when we say command line interface, what comes into your mind? And when we say graphical user interface, what comes into your mind? Let's move on and see what we have in our next slide. Alright, now let's look at the first interface. Command line interface. A command line interface processes commands to a computer. Okay, so it processes commands to a computer program in the form of lines of text. In the form of lines of text. Good. The program which handles the interface is called command line interpreter or command line processor. So a command line interface processes commands to the computer program using text. It uses text to process commands to the computer. That becomes a command line interface. Now the program that handles the interface, the program which handles the interface is called a command line interpreter or a command line processor. So when we say a command line interpreter, is any program that allows the entering of commands. Okay, any program that allows the entering of commands and then execute these commands to the operating system. It executes these commands to the operating system. I repeat, when we say a command line interpreter is any program that allows the entering of commands and then executes these commands to the operating system so that processing activities can take place. That becomes a command line interpreter. Good. So any program that allows the entry of commands and then execute those commands to the operating system, it allows the entering of what? Commands. The entering of commands so that it will be able to accept when there is an input device, okay, like the mouse. Okay, we use the mouse to click on a command. Now, after the command has been clicked, the operating system has to understand the command that has been selected in order to process its activities so that information will be made available to end users. Good. Now we have examples of the command line interface. We have the Microsoft Windows, DOS shell, mouse system, PowerPoint, and Unix. These are some few examples of the command line interface. Now, before I continue, I want to give you a reading assignment. Is that okay? A reading assignment. I want you to go and look for about 5 examples of the command line interface. Okay, just look for 5 examples of command line interface. Good, and add it to the evaluation question that I'll be displaying for you. All right, now let's move on to the next slide. Good, now we have an interface on the screen that becomes the Unix interface. Okay, as you can see the cursor over there, the Unix interface. All right, the Unix interface. So that is the mouse cursor over there. Then we have the DOS interface that becomes the DEX operating system. The DEX operating system. You know, DOS deals with the command prompt. Okay, now when we meet, we will just throw more light on the differences between the Unix interface and the DOS interface. Good. Good. Now we have graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. This interface refers to the pictures rather than words to represent the input and output of a program. It is an interface, okay, that is being made of pictures, okay, rather than words to represent the input and output of a program. The graphical user interface is a form of user interface that allows users to interact. So it allows interaction, okay, with electronic devices, okay, through graphical icons and audio indicators. A graphical user interface is a form of user interface, okay, that allows users to interact with. So they always use electronic device to manipulate graphic icons and audio indicators that will be made available. Good. Now, more light on the graphical user interface. It is a visual way of interacting with a computer using items such as windows, icons, and menus. A visual way of interacting with a computer using items such as windows, which will be installed on the system. Now, when windows are being installed on the system, we have icons. The icons will make menus available. For example, if I want to create a folder on a desktop, what I have to do is to right click on an empty part of the Windows desktop. What will be displayed for me is what? A menu. The menu will have several options on it, like new, cut, copy. All these are called commands. So when we say command, a command is an instruction that directs the software to perform a specific task. But we can see all these commands on a menu. So a menu becomes a dialog box that makes commands available in Windows. So if I want to interact with the machine, I need to have Windows, an operating system that will be installed on the machine for me to see icons, the graphical representation of files and folders. Then I can have commands being displayed on a menu. Good. So examples of this user interface are Windows, Linux, and Solaris. Good. Now this one becomes an example of a command, a user interface. That is the graphical user interface. Now on this you can see checkboxes, we can see text boxes, we have command buttons, we have control boxes. Now at the click event of a command, okay, it will direct the software to perform its function. So what is a command? A command is an instruction given to the machine to perform a specific task. That becomes a command. Okay, so we have command buttons. Now the buttons over there will tell the user, okay, its function. I hope you are learning something. So we have the text boxes which accept those inputs from the user. Then we have the check boxes where you can see the yes and then the no. So that field becomes questions and answers. Okay, so when the user selects yes, that means there have been what? An agreement. When the user selects no, that means there is no agreement to that thing that has been what? Selected. Good. So that becomes a graphical user interface. It enables the user to be able to communicate, interact with the system using those input devices. Good. All right. Now, what do we have? Features of a desktop. When we say features, we are talking about the characteristics. Is that okay? So the features of a desktop. A desktop of a computer is the screen display on a monitor comprising the background, icons, applications, and files. So over here, we are trying to define what a desktop is. A desktop of a computer is the screen display on a monitor. The screen display on a monitor. After the operating system has been installed, it will take us to where? The desktop, where icons are being made available, where wallpapers are being made available. So a desktop of a computer is the screen display on a monitor comprising the background, which becomes the wallpaper, icons for representation of other files and folders that have been installed on the machine, and applications. It is the area of a display screen where images, windows, icons, and other graphical items always do what? Appear. It becomes the main working area of the monitor. Okay, the main screen area of the monitor after booting has taken place, after which the operating system is loaded into the memory of the computer. That becomes a desktop. Okay, the screen display on a monitor. Okay, where we have the wallpaper being displayed, where we have icons, where we have files, where we have folders, and all those stuff. That defines a desktop. Good. Now this one becomes a typical diagram of a desktop. So a diagram of a desktop. Now on the left hand side, you see icons. Okay, you see icons. On the right hand side, that becomes an empty background of the computer desktop. Is that okay? Now it is painted blue, correct? It is painted blue, as you can see it over there. Now the design, okay, on it becomes what we call the wallpaper. It beautifies the desktop. That becomes the function of the wallpaper. It always beautifies the desktop. By default, you can see that icons are being arranged at the far left on the screen. Good. Alright, so features of the desktop. The main features of the desktop are icons, taskbar. Now, with the icons, we have files, we have folders, and we have programs. All these collectively, they are called icons. So if I say list the features of the desktop, you can't mention icons and at the same time mention a file. No, it is wrong. Icon become a collective name for the file that has been installed, for the folders that have been created, and for the programs that have been installed on the machine. Good. Then we also have what we call the taskbar. The taskbar. Now on the taskbar, we have the start menu, the start button, the clock, the system tray, also known as the notification area. That becomes component of the taskbar. So the main features of the desktop are icons and taskbar. For the icons, we can talk about the files, the folders, and programs. Then for the taskbar, we have the start button, the start menu, we have the system clock, the system tray, or the notification area. I hope and I believe you are jotting something down. Good. Alright. Now what we have? Evaluation. Good. You know, we can't end the lesson without we not have assignments for ourselves. So we have evaluation. Evaluation 1. We are to explain to a friend the importance of the features of the desktop. Maybe you have a friend, that person is not having a machine. What you have to do is to explain the importance of the features of the computer, the computer desktop. 2, we have to state the differences between user interface and graphical user interface. Don't forget, in our earlier slide that we displayed, we came out with the differences and then the definition of these interface. Then 3, finally, we have to state the differences between a command line interface and a graphical user interface. Good. We thank God for taking us through this lesson. We give praise to His name. We glorify His name for everything that He has done for us. It is our prayer that we will always commune with Him and have fellowship with Him in everything that we do. Don't forget, always put Him ahead of you. He will make you great. He will make you a wonder, and He will perfect your life for you. And until I come your way next time with a new subject, with a different topic, have a blissful day. Bye bye.